In the year 2067, humanity was thrust into an unexpected and terrifying conflict. The Xylan Dominion, an alien empire that had conquered countless worlds, set its sights on Earth. With their advanced weaponry and fleets of colossal warships, they expected little resistance from a primitive species like humans. Earth, in their eyes, was nothing more than another conquest, a small planet ripe for the taking. The Xylan arrived in waves, their massive ships blotting out the sun as they descended toward the Earth's surface. Cities that had stood for centuries were suddenly threatened by the cold alien forces. The first wave of attack was swift and merciless, their war machines tearing apart anything in their path. Laser beams pierced through skyscrapers, and ground forces, equipped with technology far beyond Earth's, began to march through urban centers, extinguishing all in their way. It seemed like an inevitable end, the first step in humanity's defeat. But what the Xylan hadn't counted on was the sheer unpredictability of the human spirit. As the invasion rampaged through the cities, something unexpected happened. The people of Earth, who had lived their lives in a world of technology and peace, found a hidden strength within themselves. Ordinary citizens, many with no combat experience, picked up whatever they could: tools, makeshift weapons, anything to defend their homes. They didn't wait for orders or military leaders. They just fought. The streets became battlegrounds. The Xylan, confident in their superiority, were taken off guard by the ferocity of their human adversaries. What started as scattered pockets of resistance quickly spread. People who had never been trained in war adapted at an astonishing speed. The Xylan soldiers, accustomed to dealing with defeated foes, found themselves faced with cunning, unpredictable tactics. Earth's defenders didn't rely on brute force. They used the environment to their advantage, setting traps, launching surprise attacks, and coordinating ambushes. The invaders, though technologically superior, were not prepared for an enemy that fought with such tenacity. The human resistance spread like wildfire. What started in small cities soon became a global effort. Nations once divided by borders, united in the face of this common enemy. Even civilians without military experience banded together, creating networks of resistance fighters that disrupted the Xylan's supply lines and communications. The Xylan had never seen anything like it before. The very thing they relied on, technological superiority, had become a liability. The streets of cities like New York, Paris, and Tokyo were filled with human warriors who had once been ordinary people, doctors, teachers, students, now turned soldiers. They were fighting not just for survival, but for the very future of humanity. In the face of impossible odds, the spirit of humanity became its greatest weapon. The Xylan had thought they were unstoppable, but now they were facing an enemy that refused to yield. As the battle raged on, it was clear to both sides that the conflict was far from over. The Xylan were powerful, but they had underestimated Earth's ability to fight back, and they had underestimated the one thing that made humans truly dangerous: their capacity for hope and unity. The first push of the invasion had faltered, and the Xylan, now realizing that victory was not guaranteed, began to regroup. But the humans had already proven one thing: they were far from the helpless creatures the Xylan had thought them to be. Humanity's true power wasn't in its technology or weapons. It was in its ability to stand against impossible odds and never give up. The battle had only just begun, and both sides knew that the war for Earth was far from over. As the war raged on, the Xylan Dominion's High Council, once brimming with confidence, began to feel the first stirrings of doubt. Initially, they had viewed Earth as little more than a footnote in their grand conquest of the galaxy. They had expected humanity's primitive technology and lack of unity to make the invasion a quick and effortless success. But as weeks passed, the Dominion's commanders sent back reports that filled the council chambers with growing concern. The humans were not simply surviving, they were evolving, adapting, and learning with each battle. They had expected Earth's cities to fall easily, But instead, they found themselves bogged down in urban warfare that was unlike anything they had encountered before. The humans, it seemed, had an uncanny ability to improvise. They used the terrain to their advantage, turned everyday items into deadly weapons, and fought with a stubbornness that the Xylan had never anticipated. The Xylan had thought of themselves as the pinnacle of evolution, superior in every way. But now, they realized that their pride had been their downfall. The very resilience they had underestimated in humanity had begun to turn the tide of the war. It was as if the humans' capacity for innovation and their will to survive were the most dangerous forces in the galaxy. For the first time in a long while, the Xylan Dominion's leaders questioned whether this conquest was truly as easy as they had thought. The council convened in secret, desperate to find a way to regain control. They needed a solution that would crush the human resistance once and for all. After much deliberation, a decision was reached. The Xylan would deploy their ultimate weapon, the Oblivion Star. The Oblivion Star was a superweapon unlike anything Earth had ever seen. Capable of destroying entire planets with a single strike, it was the culmination of centuries of Xylan research and innovation. With this weapon, the Dominion hoped to wipe out Earth's defenses in one fell swoop, obliterating everything in its path. It was the ultimate answer to the humans' unexpected resilience. As the order was given to activate the weapon, the Xylan felt a strange sense of finality. This would be the end of the war. With a weapon of such power, no force on Earth could stand against it. The Oblivion Star was a death sentence for humanity, a certainty that would erase any trace of resistance. On Earth, however, the atmosphere was different. As news of the Xylan's terrifying weapon spread, humanity's leaders gathered in secret meetings, aware that their world was hanging by a thread. They knew that the Oblivion Star was not a threat to be taken lightly, but they also knew that if they didn't act fast, all hope would be lost. Time was running out. Every day the Xylan were gaining ground, and the obliteration of major cities had already begun. It felt as though Earth was on the brink of collapse, but within the chaos, something extraordinary was happening. The people of Earth, despite the odds, were not giving up. There was a fire in their hearts, a burning desire to protect their home, their families, and their way of life. And that, more than anything, was what worried the Xylan. The human spirit could not be crushed by weapons or technology. They could not be controlled by fear. Earth's leaders, understanding the gravity of the situation, began to work together, like never before. Military strategists and brilliant minds from every corner of the world were brought together to devise a plan. But even with the combined knowledge of the planet's finest, the task seemed insurmountable. How could they defeat a weapon capable of wiping out their entire planet? It was a question that weighed heavily on everyone's mind. But one thing was certain: humanity would not go down without a fight. In the darkest of moments, as Earth's cities continued to burn, there was still a flicker of hope. The Xylan may have thought they had won, but humanity was not ready to surrender. They had faced down countless obstacles before, and now, with the Oblivion Star looming on the horizon, they were prepared to fight harder than ever. The final battle was coming, and it would decide not only the fate of Earth but the future of the entire galaxy. Desperation had pushed humanity to the edge, but with it came a spark of innovation that would change everything. The Xylan Dominion's superweapon, the Oblivion Star, was nearing completion. Earth's resistance, now a united front, had been struggling against the overwhelming power of the Xylan for months. But in this darkest hour, a new hope emerged. A team of Earth's brightest minds, led by the brilliant Dr. Evelyn Chen, had developed something extraordinary: an experimental weapon known as Prometheus. Unlike the sophisticated machines and technology the Xylan relied on, Prometheus was designed to harness something far more powerful: the human mind. This weapon didn't rely on raw firepower. It tapped into the vast, untapped potential of human emotion, adaptability, and willpower. The Prometheus system interfaced directly with the human consciousness, allowing a single individual to channel their mental focus into a tangible force field of pure willpower. It was a dangerous and untested technology, but in the face of extinction, humanity had no other choice but to take the risk. The weapon was humanity's last hope. As the countdown to the Oblivion Star's activation ticked away, Earth's resistance launched their most audacious operation yet. The location of the Oblivion Star's construction had been pinpointed deep within a heavily fortified Xylan installation on a distant moon. If they could disable the weapon before it was activated, there was still a chance to win the war. A team of Earth's finest soldiers, equipped with the Prometheus device, was assembled. These soldiers, chosen not just for their physical prowess, but for their mental strength, were the last line of defense. As they approached the Xylan base, the tension in the air was palpable. Their mission was clear: infiltrate the enemy base, sabotage the Oblivion Star, and escape, alive. The odds were slim. The Xylan's defenses were formidable, and the soldiers were vastly outnumbered. But their resolve was unshakable. It wasn't just about saving Earth anymore. It was about proving that no matter the cost, humanity would not be defeated. The soldiers, clad in specialized armor designed to amplify the effects of Prometheus, silently crept through the dense forests of the moon's surface. As they neared the base, they could hear the low hum of the Xylan machinery, the sound of destruction being built. Inside the base, the Oblivion Star was nearing completion. The humans had no time to waste. They split into small teams, each given a specific target within the heavily guarded installation. The plan was bold, almost suicidal. A team would cause a distraction while another infiltrated the core, using Prometheus to break through the final layer of security and reach the heart of the superweapon. The mission was a deadly game of cat and mouse, and every step forward brought them closer to certain death. But humanity had learned long ago that it was always the underdog who fought the hardest. As the teams infiltrated deeper, chaos erupted. Xylan soldiers trained to deal with conventional enemies were taken by surprise. Earth's soldiers moved quickly and with purpose, executing their plan with precision. The Prometheus device gave them an edge. Soldiers could create shields of pure willpower, blocking incoming fire and turning the tide of battle in their favor. They pressed forward, their hearts burning with the desire to protect everything they held dear. But as they neared the core of the base, the enemy was ready for them. The Xylan, no strangers to combat, had prepared a final line of defense, a group of elite warriors augmented with their most advanced technology. The two forces clashed in a brutal battle, one fueled by human determination and the other by cold, mechanical efficiency. In the heart of the chaos, Dr. Chen, who had accompanied the team to oversee the operation, coordinated the soldiers' efforts. The Prometheus device was their weapon, but it was their unity and determination that made it deadly. The soldiers, augmented by the power of human will, fought with everything they had, pushing forward even as the Xylan forces seemed to grow stronger. Each victory, no matter how small, was a testament to humanity's resilience. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the team reached the core of the base, the chamber where the Oblivion Star was being powered. The immense superweapon loomed before them, its power radiating with destructive energy, but they had come too far to turn back now. With a deep breath, the soldiers activated Prometheus. A powerful surge of energy radiated from them, creating a force field of sheer willpower that pulsed with the combined might of humanity's collective determination. The Oblivion Star began to flicker and shudder, its systems destabilizing under the pressure. It was a final gamble. If they succeeded, they could destroy the superweapon. But if they failed, it would be the end of everything. The last line of defense between humanity and annihilation had just been drawn. The Oblivion Star pulsed with an ominous glow, a beacon of destruction that hummed with the power to annihilate entire worlds. Dr. Evelyn Chen and her team stood at the threshold of history, staring down the massive, volatile superweapon that could end Earth's fight for survival in a single strike. The weight of their decision was unbearable. The Oblivion Star was primed and ready, and any hesitation could lead to total devastation. Dr. Chen's mind raced as she assessed the options. The team's mission had always been to disable the Oblivion Star, but now there was another, far more dangerous possibility. They could risk everything to take down the entire Xylan fleet in one swift blow, crippling the heart of the Dominion's military might. However, such an attack would require them to use Prometheus to its absolute limit, an unknown risk that could either secure humanity's victory or seal its doom. With the clock ticking and the pressure mounting, Dr. Chen's thoughts were interrupted by the voice of one of her team members, Sergeant Jason Clark. "We can't just destroy this thing and hope for the best, Doc. If we take it out, the Xylan will just rebuild another. We need to make a statement, one they'll never forget." His words were raw with emotion, and they struck a chord deep within her. The decision was no longer just about survival, it was about sending a message. Earth's forces weren't just fighting for their lives. They were fighting to change the course of history, to show the galaxy that humanity could not, and would not, be crushed. Dr. Chen knew the risks of using Prometheus to attack the fleet. It was their last card, and if they played it wrong, the consequences would be catastrophic. A failed strike could trigger the Oblivion Star's core to go into overload, leading to an explosion so powerful it would rip apart everything in the surrounding region, maybe even the planet itself. But there was no more time to debate. The fate of Earth hung in the balance, and with a heavy heart, Dr. Chen made the call. "Do it. We go for the fleet," she ordered, her voice steady despite the storm of anxiety within her. With that command, the team activated the Prometheus device. The soldiers, their minds linked to the powerful weapon, felt a surge of energy rush through them. The device amplified their thoughts and emotions, creating a wave of sheer willpower that resonated through their entire beings. It was as if their collective determination had formed a singular pulse, one that reached out to disrupt the Xylan's intricate technologies. For a brief moment, everything went quiet. The tension in the air was almost unbearable as the team held their breath, waiting to see if the gamble would pay off. Then, with a massive surge of energy, the Oblivion Star flickered and sputtered. The hum of its power began to wane, and the once perfectly calibrated systems started to fail. Sparks shot from the control panels as the superweapon's core destabilized. The shockwave of Prometheus's force sent tremors throughout the Xylan base, and for the first time since the invasion began, the humans had the upper hand. The immediate threat of planetary destruction was neutralized. The Oblivion Star had been disabled, and for a moment it felt as though Earth had won a great victory. The team let out a collective sigh of relief, their hearts still racing from the sheer intensity of the moment. But as Dr. Chen looked at the flickering screens, her victory was bittersweet. The battle was far from over. The Xylan had felt the loss of their superweapon, and they would not take it lying down. Even now, their fleet, massive and powerful, still loomed in the skies, threatening to unleash an even greater onslaught. Earth had bought itself some time, but that time was rapidly running out. The Xylan Empire was not a force to be underestimated, and their thirst for conquest would not be easily quenched. Dr. Chen turned to her team, their faces set with grim determination. They had won a battle, but the war was far from over. The Oblivion Star had been their greatest threat, but the Xylan were still a formidable enemy. Earth's resistance had proven that they could fight back, but now they had to rally every last ounce of strength to finish what they had started. The fight for Earth had entered its final stage, and both sides knew that the outcome would decide the fate of the planet, and perhaps the galaxy itself. The humans, still reeling from the success of their desperate gamble, braced themselves for what was to come. It was no longer just about survival. It was about standing tall in the face of an empire that had underestimated them. The battle was on, and humanity was ready for the next chapter of its fight for freedom. The final battle for Earth had arrived, and it was a clash unlike any other. The Xylan Dominion, once so confident in their technological superiority, now found themselves cornered with no other options. Their greatest weapon had been disabled, and they had no choice but to prepare for an all-out assault on the heart of the planet. This time, there would be no more tactics or calculated precision, only raw force. With their most advanced and deadliest weapons in hand, the Xylan launched a brutal, last-ditch invasion. Their warships tore through the sky, and their ground forces began to march toward Earth's core. They believed that this final push would crush the human spirit and end the war once and for all. What the Xylan didn't anticipate, however, was the unprecedented unity that had blossomed among humanity. In the face of total annihilation, Earth's fractured nations had come together like never before. The once divided world now stood united, a single fighting force against a common enemy. The leaders of Earth's nations set aside their differences, knowing that only by working together could they have a chance to survive. What the Xylan failed to understand was that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in its technology. It was in its heart, its unbreakable will to survive, and its unyielding hope for a better future. Humanity fought not just for survival, but for the memory of those who had already fallen, for the children they wished to protect, and for the future they hoped to build in peace. The soldiers, strengthened by the power of the Prometheus device, became a living embodiment of Earth's will. The device, which had once been their last hope, now amplified the courage and determination of every fighter, from the seasoned veterans to the youngest recruits, some of whom had never seen battle before, but now stood firm in the face of the Xylan onslaught. Even the civilians taking up arms with whatever they could find joined the battle. It was a fight for survival, and no one was left behind. The battle raged across cities, forests, and mountains. The Xylan, expecting quick dominance, were shocked to find that Earth's forces were not backing down. Every street corner became a battleground, every building a fortress. The humans, unrelenting and inventive, used the land to their advantage, setting traps and creating barricades, making it nearly impossible for the Xylan to advance. The Prometheus device, now in full effect, created a shield of human willpower that turned the tide in Earth's favor. Every pulse of the device bolstered their strength, pushing the Xylan back inch by inch. As the battle wore on, the Xylan began to realize that this was no longer a fight they could win. Their forces, once unstoppable, were crumbling under the sheer determination of Earth's defenders. The soldiers of Earth fought with a strength that couldn't be quantified, driven by a force far stronger than any weapon. The Xylan were forced to retreat, their armies unable to breach the human defenses. The idea of total domination that the Xylan had once taken for granted was now shattered. Their forces were scattered and broken, and for the first time since the invasion began, they saw the true power of humanity. It was not their technology, not their superior weapons, but their heart, something the Xylan could never understand or replicate. In the end, it was clear. The Xylan Empire had been defeated. They had no choice but to surrender. Earth had won, and the message it sent to the galaxy was unmistakable. Humanity was not a prize to be claimed, nor was it a people to be enslaved. Earth would never bow to another empire, no matter how advanced, no matter how powerful. The Xylan Dominion had come to conquer, but they had learned the hard way that humanity would not be cowed by force alone. As the last of the alien ships fled the atmosphere, Earth stood victorious, a planet forever changed by the war, but resolute in its future. The scars of battle would remain, but the strength of unity had ensured that humanity would rise stronger than ever. The final victory had not come from advanced technology or superior firepower, but from something far more enduring: the human spirit. The world had witnessed the incredible power of human will, and now, as the smoke of war began to clear, humanity was ready to rebuild, united in purpose and vision. The future, once uncertain, was now theirs to shape. Earth had proven one undeniable truth: no empire, no matter how advanced, could ever defeat the power of a united people.